And we're live.
With Paranormal-Spirits, a place to come to get our booze on. We talk about the booze, the things that go bump in the night. And I get to do that with my booze. I'm Mike Black. To my left, my beautiful and talented wife, Alyssa.
Hi.
Sitting across from me, my best friend, sidekick, confidant, spire of people walking up to your door.
Spire.
Man, that's normal. You shouldn't have people.
My buddy, John Birkin.
How yous doing? I don't know.
How you's doing?
Oh, so tonight, John is bringing you a story about a haunted building in New York City.
New York City?
Yeah, New York City. Get a rope.
Get a rope.
The Pace commercial.
I know, right?
I know that.
But before we do that, let's talk about what we're drinking tonight. Alyssa, what are you drinking?
Wee beastie.
Wee beastie. The 5-year-old single malt scotch.
Hard beg.
Yeah, love me some. John and I are drinking my favorite tequila tonight.
Oh, I didn't know we were on the tequila train. I could have.
Well, I mean, Cinco de Mayo is coming up. In
Dang
a few
it.
days.
Well,
I should have conformed.
You, had you known, I'm sure you would have. You're
Oh,
such
I
a
know. I
follower.
played Cinco de Mayo yesterday.
It
so
is.
I
it
know.
is Dos de Mayo today.
We are drinking tequila Ocho Blanco.
Oh, this would have been a great day for G4.
The Ocho. Boy, that's going to throw some serious waves.
Wow.
It's going to be like,
Okay.
boom, boom, boom.
I would have loved to
Looked
have.
like a heart attack.
It's gonna be,
G4. That's what.
Sound waves.
that ain't sinus rhythm right there.
No.
You should have said, "Hey, babe, it's Cinco de Mayo. You want to drink some tequila?" I'd had some G4.
I'm not drinking tequila because of it being Cinco de Mayo coming up. I'm drinking tequila because I like tequila.
Okay, I did have a lot of tequila yesterday.
Yeah, the Ocho is good.
I like it.
G4 is better.
Here on ESPN 8, the Ocho. Remember that? Dodgeball?
No, but that
Underdog.
is my favorite tequila. All right. So, without further ado, John,
Okay.
take it away.
So today we're going to talk about the curse of the Dakota.
The Dakota?
The Dakota building.
South or north?
It's a building.
Oh.
It's in Nueva York.
New York City.
In New York City, the Dakota building is located at the northwest corner of 72nd Street and Central Park West in Manhattan's Upper West Side. Bougie,
I like bougie.
Upper West Side is one of the most iconic and historically significant residential buildings in the entire city.
So this is like a condos or apartment. You said residential. So
Yeah, it's a co-op, apartment building
Okay.
with luxury apartments.
Gotcha.
And a co-op board that can decide whether
that's-
or not you can live there.
It's so strange to me living here. We just don't have a lot of that.
We do. Those high rises over there by the golf
I know,
course.
but that's the only ones around here that I know of.
They're about $800,000 an apartment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Same price, huh?
Yeah. You know, these are a lot more.
Wow.
A lot more. Just your today, the co-op board fees, you pay $12,000 a month just for that.
Good Lord.
Or that's what one resident paid. Normal is about $6,000.
God. Go ahead.
One particular resident that we'll get to later is charged double for some reason, but
Jeez.
she's probably a royal pain. The building was constructed between 1880 and 1884, and it was designed by architect Henry J. Herdenberg with an H on both ends, in a style reminiscent of the German Renaissance. Whatever that means. It means creepy looking big buildings.
Yeah.
What it means. Its name reportedly stems from its remote location at the time of construction, which was considered as far away as the Dakota Territory, because at the time the Upper West Side on that part of Central Park was a swamp.
Oh, really?
If you think about it, I mean, we're talking about just 15 years after the draft riots, like in Gangs of New York or the Civil War, the five
1860,
points,
Yeah, that
when
would
the
have been-
5 points make a fist, the dead rabbits. No, you're 15 years after that.
Yeah.
So that part that is now this super bougie residential area was a swamp.
Wow.
So the Dakota was a brainchild of a wealthy attorney named Edward Clark, who made his money as a co-founder of the Singer Sewing Machine Company, along with Mr. Singer. Although architect Henry Hardenberg was responsible for the design, Clark provided the required money, planning, and time to make New York's first co-op building a reality. In his book, The Dakota, A History of the World's Best-Known Apartment Building, because it's actually a very famous building, Arthur Andrew Alpern describes Clark as an individual ahead of his time who thought outside of the box, much like Steve Jobs. Clark was said to have an intuitive understanding of the new urban bourgeoisie for whom the Dakota was tailor-made, consisting of mainly marshland and wasteland. The Upper West Side looked very different when the Dakota was first built. In an 1889 copy of Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper, described it as a great overshadowing mass of brick and stone.
So how tall was this thing?
It's still the same height.
How tall is this thing?
It's 10 stories, I think.
Oh, is it?
Well, I mean, it's dwarfed by the buildings
Yeah.
around it now, but yeah.
But back then, that was a
Back
big
then,
deal.
like, you could see pictures of it back when it was constructed, and it's like this massive Gothic-looking castle thing standing in the middle of a swamp.
Wow.
It's very iconic. You'll find out why, and then you'll see a picture of it, and you'll be like, oh, I know that building. Over the years, the building's been home to many celebrities, artists, and prominent individuals, earning a reputation as a coveted address for Manhattan's elite. The Dakotas housed numerous notable residents, including Lauren Bacall, Judy Garland, Leonard Bernstein, John Madden, Lillian Gish, Boris Karloff, Rosemary Clooney, and more. Its storied past and association with the arts and entertainment industry has solidified its status as a cultural landmark in New York City. Now, despite its glamour and opulence, the Dakota has a mysterious and tragic past and is believed to be not only haunted, but cursed. A curse that has claimed a number of victims since the building was constructed. Many famous victims. The first victim, supposedly, was Edward Clark himself, who had a very special luxury apartment that was being built with sterling silver floors.
Wow.
Really?
But he never got to live in it because he died of malaria
Oh,
2
damn.
years before the building opened.
God.
Oh my gosh.
Another alleged victim was famed Russian composer Peter Tchaikovsky, the guy who wrote the 1812 Overture and all that. He had purchased an apartment in the building and acquired permission to move in early, but then died of mysterious circumstances at the age of 53 in Russia before he could take possession. Now, some say he drank some dirty water and died of cholera, and others say he unalived himself.
Self-deleted.
Actress Judy Holliday lived in apartment 77 for the last few years of her life before dying of cancer in 1965 at the age of 43. A very young age of 43. Yeah. And Marilyn Monroe did a photo shoot in Holliday's apartment not long before her own death in 1962. Now, of course, the most famous death associated with the Dakota is that of its most famous former, now resident, John Lennon.
That's why I know this.
Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono owned 5 apartments in the building, but lived in luxurious apartment number 72. And on, of course, 8th December 1980, 40-year-old Lennon was gunned down at the entrance archway of the Dakota while returning home with his wife by Mark David Chapman. Chapman said he was inspired by the fictional character Holden Caulfield from J.D. Salinger's novel Catcher in the Rye. Someone who wanted to kill phonies and loathed hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And Chapman was a longtime Beatles fan, but was delusioned by Lennon's luxurious lifestyle and his 1966 famous comment that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. After she came up, put 538s in him, sat down with his copy of Catcher in the Rye, and waited for the police to come.
Yeah, I remember that.
This is where the whole Catcher in the Rye conspiracy, assassin conspiracy thing comes from. Now, Lennon, when he lived there, openly discussed seeing one of the other famous residents during this time, a ghost, which he dubbed the Crying Lady. The Crying Lady is probably the most famous ghost of the Dakota, and it was Lennon who had come up with that name for her. She could be seen walking the halls of the building, is believed to be the ghost of Elise Vesley, the former manager of the building, who worked there between the 30s and the 50s. Elise was said to have had an intense interest in the paranormal and believed that she had psychokinetic powers. But her son, one day, was struck and killed by a truck outside the building.
Oh, gosh.
This is a theme, by the way, with people dying in front of this building. And after that, her personality changed. She became overly nice. Apparently, she wasn't that nice before. And she became very protective of all the children that lived in the building. And it's believed she carried that protective instinct into the afterlife. And she still patrols the halls to make sure all the children are safe.
Close calls, though, they really can. They really can. It can be an epiphanal moment.
Right.
So that's understandable.
Now, another frequently seen spirit is that of a young girl who's been seen bouncing a red ball up and down the halls and entering and exiting closets. She's described, she was first seen by painters doing renovations in the 1960s. They described her as having blonde hair, wearing a yellow dress, white stockings, and what do you call those black, like the patent leather shoes with the buckles that you see?
Mary Jane's?
Sure.
Yeah, they're Mary
Jane's.
Yeah, those shoes. Said the first time they saw her, she came up, she looked at them and said, "It's my birthday."
Because that's not creepy.
Before disappearing down the hall. And not long after that encounter, one of the painters fell from a scaffolding and died in the building.
Probably.
So ever since that, they think that the young girl is some kind of harbinger or has a curse of her own.
Or maybe it's just pretending to be a little girl. Maybe it's not really a
little girl.
I don't know. In the late 30s, an electrician named John Painter, which is ironic. Like, you'd think he would be a painter.
Mm-hmm.
His name's not John Sparky, but
he was an electrician.
He was an electrician.
Oh, okay.
Named
Painter.
Painter.
Sparky. Yeah.
He was working in the Dakota, and according to him, the wiring of the building was very strange and had many parts he'd never seen before, and circuits and stuff that he'd never encountered. And he'd often take pieces of it home to try and work all this out. One night he stayed late working in the basement, trying to sort out some of these odd circuits. And out of the shadows appears a short man wearing a frock coat, wire rim glasses, a beard, and what looked like a wig. Mm-hmm. It says the man glared at him angrily, pulled the wig off, and shook it at him. And then disappeared.
How weird.
The painter said he had 4 more encounters with this spirit in the basement and never could figure out who it was until he saw a photograph of Edward Clark, the man who commissioned the building. And he said, "That's who I saw."
Oh, my God.
Really?
So Edward was pissed off because he was changing up his wiring or something?
Well, what begs to wonder, why would you have this odd wiring and stuff? It made me think of the building in Ghostbusters, that was a battery, a paranormal battery. Mm-hmm. And it makes you think, I wonder if all that weird wiring
had something to do with it.
Is to create a paranormal battery.
I don't know. Strange.
Because there is a lot of stuff going on here. Now, in 1976, Joseph Milzner, who was considered to be the greatest set designer of the golden age of Broadway.
Oh, wow.
He lived in the Dakota for many years and was struck and killed by a cab outside of the building.
Out front.
Yeah. Yep. Same place where the manager's son was hit by a truck. Same place where John Lennon was hit by 538 hollow points. As well as designing sets for Broadway, he also designed parts of the Dakota's interior. And in the weeks following his death, workers at the Dakota were attacked by unseen force, throwing objects across the basement. A porter, not sure what a porter is, but
it's a person that
like a kind of like a bellhop.
A bellhop, yeah.
Okay, so a porter had witnessed a shovel fly off the wall and land in the middle of the room, as well as bags of garbage flying around. Again, we're in the basement, right?
Yeah.
And so the portal was so startled, he called a resident, Wilbur Ross, who is a famous financier, and who would later go on to become Commerce Secretary in the Trump administration.
Interesting.
To come and take a look. And Ross says that a iron bar came off the wall, flew at him, landed on the floor, barely missing him. And he tried to pick it up and move it. It was so heavy he couldn't pick it up.
Wow.
This is United States Commerce Secretary under the previous administration. This guy's still alive, still lives there.
Wow.
That's just weird. I didn't realize when I first read this that I looked up Wilbur Ross and realized that he was
Who he was.
who he was. Yeah. I was looking at famous residents and I was like, now, one of the more frightening spirits is the ominously named Phantom of the Dakota, a.k.a. the Mad Slasher.
The Mad Slasher.
This has to do with Joseph Belzer. You know, one of the last things that he designed for the building before he died was a new elevator system. And shortly after the new system was installed, something would come in, it would make deep gashes, like slashes in the panels inside the elevators that appeared to be done with a large knife. Then they would put new panels in. Then a few days later, they'd be cut up again. Then they found, at the same time this was going on, stacks of paper on the 9th floor stacked up as if in a way that you were going to start a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last straw was a can of paint fell off the roof into the inside court, the interior courtyard, and barely missed a resident. So people that lived there was no painting going on in the building at the time. There's no reason for a can of paint to be on the roof. 10 stories up.
That would left a dent.
Yeah. And so concerned residents kind of took it upon themselves. They thought this was a person doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Which would be illogical.
They put together their own little surveillance teams.
Okay, this kills me. These people
these bougie rich people,
bougie ass rich people living in this bougie ass building, who are going to get together the neighborhood watch. And,
yeah. So they put themselves in different hiding places and stuff, and would watch the comings and goings of the building.
I cannot.
Mr. Hal and Lovey over there.
Yeah. Lovey, are you going to watch the hallways today?
I mean, he doesn't have much room to talk with his drape watching.
Yeah, but I'm not rich. I don't,
Yeah.
If I lived in this building, I'd just get a porter to watch the halls for me.
Right.
But the only thing they ever saw, the only thing they ever found out was that there was a whole bunch of ugly bumping going on in that place between married people and people they were not married to.
Well,
And no sign of the Mad Slasher was ever seen. And it had stopped. And people think that was also Edward Clark unhappy with the new elevator system and changes to the building. Now, another ghost that has been reported seen multiple times is that of John Lennon. His first reported seen in 1983 by Joey Harrow and Amanda Moore, who claimed to have seen him standing in the archway right where he was murdered.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that he was surrounded by a strange light. And Amanda Moore started to approach him, but she said that the look on his face suggested he was in no mood to have conversations with strangers.
He's pissed because he got shot in front of that
Probably.
building.
Now, the most famous sighting that by Yoko Ono, who still lives in apartment 72 to this day.
Oh,
she
wow.
still lives in that apartment. She's the one that gets charged double go-up maintenance fees for some reason. She paid $12,000 a month in maintenance fees.
Oh my gosh.
Why? She have two apartments?
Well, she has 5. They had bought 5. They went on a buying spree back in the 70s. And
Imagine that.
But you know the irony
She had
of this
Beatle money.
is that they moved into the Dakota because they felt it was more secure than their previous apartment in Greenwich Village. But she claimed she saw the spirit of John sitting at his white piano in their apartment, and that he turned to her and said, don't be afraid, I'm still with you. Or don't be afraid, I'm still with you. I don't know. I can't do a Liverpudlian accent. And then vanished, right? Judy Holliday, who, remember, she died in 1965 in apartment 77, or not in the apartment, but
Right.
after her death, the unit was sold, and 3 painters who were in there doing new paint, covering up her old paint, refresh for the new owners. All 3 reported seeing a ghost who had the body of a man in his 20s and the face of a child. I'm not even sure how could just be a real young looking 20-year-old, but and another painter who was doing touch-ups in there in a closet, he says that the door slammed behind him, the light went out, and something grabbed his arm.
I'm out.
People believe that Holiday has something to do with this, and it was a displeasure about changes being made to her apartment. Now, Frederick and Susan Weinstein, they were residents of this building, and they had some very odd encounters. Frederick came home one day to find a new brightly lit chandelier hanging in the apartment. But then when he went to go inspect it, it disappeared. So he checked out and there was nothing there. He checked out the ceiling and found that the bolts were still there, where at one point a chandelier had been a chandelier.
So I've heard of a lot of different ghostly things, but not a chandelier. That's crazy.
But this wasn't the only incident. There was a lot of odd things when they lived there. They claimed to hear unexplained noises, as well as rugs and chairs moving on their own, with the activity especially directed at Fred. Matter of fact, Fred got hurt multiple times he would go sit down in a chair, the chair would scoot out from under him, and he'd fall on his butt. Or he'd be walking on one of the rugs, and he'd have the sensation the rug was being pulled right out from under him.
Wow.
Now, this all occurred after, it turns out, he had been playing a Ouija-type game.
Oh, of course. And here we are.
With his children using letter tiles, like Scrabble tiles. Instead of, it was a board and planchette, they were using Scrabble. So he designed something with Scrabble tiles, right? And they say they were in contact with the spirit of a little girl, quite possibly the one that was responsible for the painter.
Killing the painter.
So after playing the game, Frederick said that he took all the tiles, put everything back together, put it in the closet. But days later, he came across 2 tiles in the pocket of his suit and a 3rd tile in his glasses case. Now, what do you think the 3 letters were?
Satan.
That's more than 3 letters.
5. Dear.
Okay, math is hard. I don't know.
I
See you.
You. And you.
So he's going to end up in the ICU?
I think
my
more
gosh.
like I see
you.
Yeah, so I'm going to start pulling the rug out from under you and your chairs out from under you and stuff like that.
So maybe the ghost thinks that he's a ghost. Kind of,
I don't know.
Sixth sense thing.
I don't know. I mean, clearly, like, most residents don't openly talk about it because there are some pretty famous people living there right now. So if by now you will have, when you're editing, you will have seen a picture of this building. Or you may have, now that you know the Lennon thing, you know what this building looks like. And it may seem familiar. Not just because of John Lennon's murder, but also because this was the set for the 1968 Roman Polanski directed horror film Rosemary's Baby.
For real.
The exterior shots.
Yeah.
So the front facade and the interior courtyard. This was where it was filmed.
Oh, wow.
Now, Polanski didn't want to use the inside hallways because they're painted bright white. He wanted something a little darker. So they used a building down the street.
I wonder how many movies it actually has been. I know it couldn't have been that one.
2.
And what was the other one?
House of Strangers, 1949, starring Edward G. Robinson.
Hello.
Those are the only 2 times a film crew's ever been allowed inside this building.
Oh, wow.
Definitely never since 1968.
Yeah.
So this was based on the 1967 Ira Levin novel of the same name. which is a huge bestseller. And the Dakota was chosen as the on-screen stand-in for the fictional Bramford building in the novel due to its distinctive foreboding appearance. Many believe the use of the cursed Dakota led to the curse of the film, the well-known curse of Rosemary's Baby.
I don't know this curse.
Okay, this is one of those cursed films.
I know the Exorcist curse.
Well, there's a curse around Rosemary's Baby as well.
Huh.
It might happen. You film a satanic horror film in an already cursed location.
That you've been using Ouija boards.
Yeah.
So
So the film opened to rave reviews. Roger Ebert wrote, Polanski outdoes Hitchcock. Liz Smith in Cosmopolitan called it sheer perfection. Variety praised
it was a good movie.
Okay. I just watched it last night because of this for the first time.
Pretty good movie, actually. You have to take it in context of when it was done.
The last 30, 40 minutes are pretty good. First half, I was falling asleep.
It's that slow burn, that build.
Yeah, I mean the one scene at the end where the God is dead. He has his father's eyes. Hail Satan.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. I just couldn't have like the husband guy, the guy who plays Guy.
Mm-hmm.
I know he was in the Dirty Dozen. So I was associated with his character, the Dirty Dozen. Mia Farrow, who Variety said was outstanding. I thought she was the worst actor in the entire film. She's terrible,
and she pretty much lost her mind during that. That filming, from what I read.
So, this is where the rabbit hole starts here. Okay, So buckle up. So also they called Christopher Comeda, who was the composer who wrote that weird score that I didn't care for, but apparently Variety thought was top notch. I thought it was just weird and didn't really.
I thought it was good. Actually.
I didn't know if it could do with it. There was a lot of working with a, the thing on the end of the trumpet and I don't know. And producer William Castle crossed an artistic Rubicon. Like a few years later, they made The Exorcist. That was a hell of a lot scarier than It was not the least bit scary at all. There was nothing scary.
I think it was scary in a different way.
I mean, the only thing I could take away was that half time I thought maybe Rosemary's crazy.
Yeah,
and none of this is really. But then at the end, no, she wasn't crazy. And I didn't like the devil, like the hairy devil when she gets banged by the devil.
Okay.
I thought that was a weird artistic choice for the bringer of light, the most beautiful of all angels, to turn him into. I didn't understand that, but whatever. It's 1968. What do you? So, all these rave reviews, movie comes out, big hit, play at theaters worldwide, making all this money, and then the curse begins. So, the first unlucky soul was Comeda, the composer. Came up with that weird music. Now, details of his death are still scarce, but Polanski tells it this way. In autumn of 1968, 37-year-old Comeda was roughhousing at a party when he fell off a rocky escarpment and into a 4-month-long coma. The same thing that happens to Hutch in the movie. And you remember Rosemary's suspicious friend, who gave her the book, All Them Witches?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, who came to visit them, and, his gloves missing. Anyway, so Comeda never regained consciousness and died in Poland in 1969, just like Hutch in the movie. In April 1969, producer William Castle, who was getting a ton of hate mail, especially from Catholics and stuff, but the worry over all this hate mail that he was constantly getting apparently caused him to be stricken with severe kidney stones and hospitalized.
I didn't know that hate mail caused kidney stones.
I don't. Well,
I'm so uneducated.
Yeah, but a curse might.
Yeah,
I'd say a curse, definitely.
So while he's delirious in the hospital, he's hallucinating scenes from the film. And at one point, he was to yell out, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." He recovered, just barely, and then never made a Hollywood hit ever again. Now, Polanski. There's a reason why I've never seen this movie. it's because it's the only Roman Polanski film I have ever watched. The only reason I watched it was because of this. I refuse to watch anything that he made because he's a disgusting, horrible, chomo, pedo creep who has a Interpol red notice on him, by the way. You know about the 1977 thing, right?
Yes.
So we'll start with the 77 thing first. And there's not much I could say on YouTube, except that he gave alcohol and Quaaludes to a 13-year-old girl and did stuff to her. And he was charged with it, pled it down to a lesser charge of...
And then hauled ass.
And then took off to Europe and has never come back. Went to France and has never come back since because he can't, because he's going to get arrested and sent to prison the second he steps off the plane. There have been multiple attempts to extradite him back to the U.S. One time they almost got him in 2009. He made the mistake of going to Switzerland to accept in Zurich to accept an award, a lifetime achievement as a dirtbag award, I guess, from the
dirtbag
at the Zurich Film Festival, and American authorities got wind of it, and Switzerland has an extradition treaty with the U.S. France doesn't. Poland doesn't. So for all these years, he's avoided going to countries that have extradition treaties with the U.S.
Yeah.
And they picked him up at the airport and held him for a long time. And then all these Hollywood weirdos sign a petition, beg for his release.
I remember this.
Yes, and the most disappointing one, the most heartbreaking signatures of all, was Han Solo. Harrison Ford, what the hell? This dude's a creep who deserves to be rotting in an American prison. But whatever. So anyway, that's why I've never seen any of his films. Refused to, but I suffered through it for this, right?
Suffered, huh?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that great.
I thought it was a great movie.
The Exorcist is way better.
It's different. That's all. I think they're both. Yes, The Exorcist is a better movie, but I think they're both good movies in their own right. It's just a different. It's a different tempo. It's a different feel. So.
Anyway, so that's what his ultimate fate. But there was other stuff that happened to Polanski before that is associated with the curse of Rosemary's Baby. So, and of course, this has been told and retold into legend, especially by Polanski himself. But he had relocated to California alongside his new girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate. They had rented a house on Cielo Drive.
Right.
Yep.
We all know what happened there.
She was fresh off her first movie role as a witch in Eye of the Devil. And before filming on Rosemary's Baby began, she was really gunning hard for the role of Rosemary. She's dating the director. She's buddy. She really wanted this role. But Paramount was insistent upon Mia Farrow, which I can't understand why, because she was terrible in it. Sharon Tate would have been a lot better. So instead, Tate's loitering around the set, and she did appear in one scene in Rosemary's Baby, and I watched for it. It was the young people only party, because all these old people are constantly hovering, right? So she invited all their old friends over for a party, and you could see Sharon Tate sitting on a couch, like with no speaking role, camera. That's it.
Yeah.
But during this filming, some say she became increasingly obsessed with the occult.
Mia Farrow did?
No.
Sharon Tate.
And many years later, a friend quoted her in print as having said, "The devil is beautiful. Most people think he's ugly, but he's not." Take it for what you will, right?
Yeah.
It's the 60s, right? This is LaVey time, right there. But Polanski last saw Tate. He was headed to London to film this vampire movie. I can't remember the name of it. I'll never watch it, so it doesn't matter. But, and he says he recalls having this grotesque thought that you'll never see her again, as he wrote. And as you know, Tate was brutally murdered along with 4 others in that house on the night of August 9th, 1969 by members of the Manson family, as was her unborn son. This is all while Rosemary's Baby is still lingering in theaters. Now, unable to make sense of a tragedy like this and captivated by stories of the Manson family, the the public took to Satan and curses as the only explanation why something like this could happen, right? Mm-hmm. Some even going so far as to say that Polanski made his young bride a blood sacrifice for his still untouchable status in Hollywood and beyond. Now, of course, there's absolutely zero evidence that anyone in the Manson family even knew Roman Polanski. We all know why they went to that house. It's because that was the previous tenant was Terry Melcher, music producer Terry Melcher, and Manson had met Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys at a party there, and he was trying to get his record produced. And when he went and saw other people living there, that's when he snapped or whatever, right? So now other people believe that the Manson murders were a mere moment in a grand satanic conspiracy scored by the Beatles. The White Album was largely written at an Indian meditation ashram, with Mia Farrow in attendance at the same ashram at the same time as part of the Beatles' entourage.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Now, Charles Manson was so inspired by this album that it became the impetus for the murders, you know. Now, according to Manson family member Catherine Gypsy Cher, when the Beatles' White Album came out, Charlie listened to it over and over and over again. He was quite certain that the Beatles had tapped into his spirit, the truth, that everyone was going to come down, and the black man was going to rise. These are my words. These are her words, not mine. Was going to rise. It wasn't Charlie listened to the White Album and started following what he thought the Beatles were saying. It was the other way around. He thought that the Beatles were talking about what he had been expounding for years. Every single song on the White Album, he felt that they were singing about us. The song Helter Skelter, he interpreted that to mean that the black people are going to go up and the whites are going to go down. And if you remember, this was all the whole thing, the whole murders were to inspire a race war, right? That he called Helter Skelter. Now, Manson and his followers murdered Tate and 4 others at Polanski's home on August 9th. And then on the following night of August 10th, they went to the home of Lilo and Rosemary LaBianca and murdered them. And the song title Helter Skelter, albeit misspelled, was scrawled in blood at the crime scenes. And 11 years later, John Lennon, the co-writer of that exact song,
was murdered.
Was assassinated at the front door of the Dakota, the same cursed New York City landmark where Rosemary's Baby was filmed. So now we've made a complete circle around. And a deep rabbit hole.
Man, that is a rabbit hole. Dude.
So much.
That is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Wow.
So today, you know, this remains still is a highly sought after address. Current residents include news anchor Connie Chung, Broadway Joe Namath, Rosie O'Donnell, Killing Me Softly with his song Roberta Flack,
Killing me.
and film critic Rex Reed. Now, the building's co-op board is notorious for rejecting people and not allowing people to purchase apartments, right?
Oh, really? What is it based on? Obviously, it's not just the
Your
ability to
name.
purchase.
Well, lately,
Your name.
yeah.
You have to sign a
Some of the more
contract
famous
with the devil.
Some of the more famous rejections have been Madonna, Billy Joel, Cher, Gene Simmons.
Oh, imagine that.
That one I can understand.
I wouldn't rent a dilapidated house to Gene Simmons back in his wild days. Probably now, yeah. But
A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez,
yeah.
and Judd Apatow, you know, the filmmaker, 40-year-old virgin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all those.
Funniest film ever.
Yeah. Former resident Albert Maisels, I guess how you pronounce that. Anyway, who had unsuccessfully tried to sell his unit to Melanie Griffith and Antonio Banderas. They were rejected as well. Told the New York Times in 2005 that what's so shocking is that the building is losing its touch with interesting people. More and more, they're moving away from creative types and going towards people who just have the money. And of course, this might have something to do. I mean, they're like, after that whole Rosemary's Baby thing, they did the John Lennon thing, we're going to start rejecting applications from anybody involved in music or film or cinema.
Or Satanism.
Yeah. I'm sure they saw Gene Simmons. That didn't even get read there. No. No. Billy Joel, though. I mean, I don't get that.
I don't know.
Anyway, so that's the Curse of Dakota and how it ties into the Curse of Rosemary's Baby and the murder of John Lennon and the Manson murders.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Maybe it's one of those deals where they bring out the lease agreement and Satan is standing there and he pricks your finger and you have to sign it in blood or something. And maybe some people are funny about that. So
I mean, I don't know. I can't see Connie Chung as a sadist or Broadway Joe. I mean, he was C.C. Ryder. Rosie O'Donnell, maybe. She might be the devil himself. But
the devil.
Roberta Flack, I can't see that. Anyway. But
that's interesting.
That's the Dakota.
I like
And
that.
That's a hell of a conspiracy. I've
really
never
is.
heard this one. The way it all ties it. This was like setting through that show, The Octopus.
This is what exactly what I was
The
thinking of when I was
octopus
writing it. I was like,
Yes.
every time I'd hit another, I was like, this is like that octopus stuff.
Yeah.
This
that's
is like
crazy.
a satanic octopus.
Yeah. Satanic.
Satanic octopus.
Oh my God. That's wild.
How many apartments are there?
I'm not sure because it's changed over the years. They've
Remodeled and
remodeled and knocked down walls, made bigger. Apparently, they're big. I mean, if you've probably seen pictures from inside Yoko Ono.
Yes,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen them.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And in New York City, I mean, that's
Yeah, it's ginormous.
millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I mean, you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars a month just in the maintenance,
Just to
co-op fees.
just to have the privilege of being able to own it.
There's several buildings. Also, this building was also considered for the building that would be the battery for Gozer the Gozerian in Ghostbusters.
Oh, really?
But the
turned it down.
co-op board was like, nah.
Yeah. We
never-
already got enough bad
And
press.
nobody filming in this building ever again since Polanski. That's it. And so they actually filmed that at 55's Central Park West. It's just right down the street.
Uh-huh.
But
That's crazy.
there's a little block of these buildings right there at the Upper West Side. They're all famous, very desirable addresses.
Yeah.
But the Dakota was the first and probably the most famous. Not always for the right reasons.
Very interesting.
I know a lot of people go visit it because of Lennon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
But
mecca
you know,
for
but if you're
Beatle
just in
fanatics.
front of that building, you want to pay attention to traffic.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, that's any building I'm standing in front of. I pay attention to traffic. But
Yeah.
For sure.
And there's
Pretty
a lot
cool.
of Rosemary's Babies fans who go there too, just to have their picture taken in front of the Bramford.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's reminiscent of like the Stanley.
It
You
does
know-
look a little bit like that, except way more stone, like
Well, I mean, like
darker and more,
even though like just people wanting to go there to see it because of The Shining, even though it wasn't even filmed there.
Mm-mm.
That's
Not the inside, no.
right. But I mean, like the outside was.
No, the outside was filmed
But
in
in
Oregon.
Oregon, the inside I think was filmed at the Stanley, or that's where he
Yeah.
got his idea from.
Yeah, he got his idea from the Stanley.
And so people go there when and take pictures when really nothing of. I mean, there's.
I mean, the Stanley has a resident paranormal team.
Oh yeah, I mean the Stanley for sure is
year
one.
round, 365 year round resident paranormal team that alternates members and stuff.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it would not be known as what it is had it not been for that movie. Is my
Oh, no.
point. Like
For
the
sure.
Dakota may not be something if it hadn't had all these.
You know who's not been to the Dakota?
You.
Zach. And
Joel
Really?
Osteen.
because they would never.
They probably wouldn't let
they
him.
Would never let him in that building ever.
Heck no.
No.
No, there's doormen and gates, like the archway in front of where Lennon was. Because there's a gate and doormen. You know, those fancy New York City doormen with their there's and guards. So because there are some very wealthy, famous people living in this building, and
Right.
you know, it makes sense that
That's
you
what they
would,
pay for. They pay for their...
They pay for that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that, and the fact say I live in Dakota.
Yeah. Very good.
Loved that.
I don't know. It kind of blew the first time heard this whole thing with the Rosemary's Baby, and then the Manson it all come out. It was like and Lennon and the White Album. I was,
And it all started tying together.
yeah,
That's crazy. That was very good.
I liked that story. Would you go there?
Well, I mean, yeah, go out in front. You can't
Yeah.
go
I mean, I
in.
know
You're
you
not
can't
gonna,
go
you ain't
in.
getting in.
Yeah. We don't got it like that, babe.
You're not getting in unless you've been
know.
invited to somebody's party in there. And you have,
You're right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You don't have it like that. I don't have it like that.
I wouldn't live in it. I would never live in that place.
No.
New York City? Jesus.
I would like to do it just to experience it, maybe for 6 months a year or something.
What I would like to do is to go and visit for like a week at a time to eat and shop and then come back and have a yard.
Yeah, that's
and be able to drive a car and carry
Yeah.
a gun and, without going to Rikers Island, being locked up or, and not have, if you've ever been on the subway in New York City,
Yeah, we have.
it was horrific.
Yeah, I love.
There were
where we
people
live.
touching me on all sides, like strangers touching me.
There
It was
were people
freaking
touching
me
you.
out.
Yeah.
Not like in a bad way, just you're crammed in there is horrible. But you got some of the best food in the world, so you got to go eat.
Okay, let's take care of business. We need to start. Remember to mention this up front, but if you watch this show because we drink booze while we're talking and you like booze, you need to go to our YouTube video for Lizzie Borden, and in the comment section, write Blanton's. Please be over 21, because we are going to give away a bottle of Blanton's to some lucky, happy person that wins, right?
Yeah, you'll have to show your ID and stuff. So
Yeah.
clearly,
Yeah.
proof of
age.
proof of
age verification.
Age verification required.
Okay, also, make sure you check out our Paranormal-Spirits podcast, because we have an After Dark section. That's when the lights go down, the cameras go off, and we just talk, and there's no video associated with it. But it's where we can say things that we can't say on YouTube or shouldn't say on YouTube. And we can just be ourselves.
Or
and,
should be able to, but can't.
Yeah, right.
because of-
So that's where you find out just how much of a nut we can be. So check us out. You're obviously watching on YouTube right now. If you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening to a podcast, come to 3B Paranormal Spirits on YouTube. If you're listening on on YouTube, then you can go check out the podcast at Paranormal-Spirits. If you want to see our website, that's paranormal-spirits.com.
if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button
Oh, absolutely. Subscribe, like, comment,
and subscribe.
go to the Lizzie Borden one. Put your Blantons in there. It doesn't take but a second, and you might win that bottle of Blantons.
London.
That's right. Go to our website. Go to TikTok, Instagram. I called it Xbox last week.
You sure did.
I totally did. X. And if you go there, it's paranormal_spirits. And I'm going to put it right there like I always do so you can see it. And I think that's it. John, you had tequila ocho blanco.
The Ocho.
Alyssa drank
Wee beastie.
Ardbeg 5.
Ardbeg.
Wee Beastie.
Wee beastie.
And of course, I had the tequila ocho as well. And y'all have a good night.
Night night.
Night night.